We're going to start after this, family. Tune in, share, like, comment, and subscribe. Shalom. Israel Yahuwah Eloheinu Yahuwah. Dekabadu Shem Yehovah Makuto. Leolam Ha'eh Shema Shema. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan, of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, that we intend to go over, that we intend to speak upon, that we intend to bring out to the people for edification purposes, if we will. We call this, brothers and sisters, the last history presentation for a while. And the reason why that is because on these channels, and giving honor to the Most High, there has been X amount of presentations that has been done on the Shabbat, on other days, concerning matters of history, concerning matters of what we have been through, go through as a people. I, brothers and sisters, and I say this in no dishonor intended, I do not intend, brothers and sisters, to attempt to spread myself too thin. So on the channel not too long ago, we did the last Hebrew class that's live. While the channel Mora Yeshaya Hebrew lesson still in existence, Not Plain Salesman on the Shabbat, the Hebrew book still exists, and so forth and so on. There will not be a continual matter concerning the Hebrew lessons while they date back all the way to 2014, going all the way from Aleph and Bet to how brothers and sisters, the command form in the feminine plural is used inside of the Hitpael stem. So I state that to state not haughty or arrogance, brothers and sisters, but more so on the matter of the fact that we have spent time on the Hebrew language. Brothers and sisters, this is again not trying to deal in salesmanship on the Shabbat. A brother has 5 history books out. So with all of that being the case and other things coming up, this particular presentation is going to be the last history presentation that we will do for quite some time. All right. This presentation on history is going to be a lengthy one. We do not intend for it to be longer than an hour and a half, nonetheless. We want to state thank you for all of the support that was shown, from the sharing of videos to the buying of books to the sharing of the ads. A must-do respect on the human level is to my lady Sarai, who for over a year has been a support and advisor. Brothers and sisters, not too long ago, me and my lady made 1 year anniversary of courting. And in that 1 year, there has been ups, downs, left, rights, and so forth and so on. But in all of that, we still know that Yah is Elohim and there is none besides him, who holds already the position of Lord and Savior, has already been fulfilled by the Most High. The position of our King has already been fulfilled by the Most High. So in light of all of that, brothers and sisters, I do give due benevolence and respect to the Most High for having the lady Sarai in my life. Let us go on, if you will, to the next slide. Now, let us look at this, the land and the tribes. All right, now, while, brothers and sisters, we take our time and we can use, if we will, the laser pointer. I want to point out here that Simeon is within the land of Judah. Now, while not attempting to slander anybody, brothers and sisters, it was a recent discussion that somebody who was promoting the standard given 12 tribe chart stated that the book of Joshua may not be as accurate. So that understanding made me want to go and show how ancient Israel looked as far as the landmass is concerned. All right. We're talking, brothers and sisters, of Simeon in Judah. You read that, brothers and sisters, when you get in the Bible in Joshua chapter 15 and Joshua chapter 19. Now, how does that correlate to what we're talking about? Is because when the northern kingdom fell to the Assyrians, we have to admit that Simeon by default geographically was not within that area. Now, when the southern kingdom fell to Babylon, that did include in part the tribe of Simeon. So I just want to point that out for reference purposes. Next slide. Israelites in Assyria. This is from the era when the Israelites were in the Assyrian captivity. What you're seeing there are Assyrian soldiers impaling Israelites. Now, that was something that was done by, as seen there on the Sennacherib War. Sennacherib, brothers and sisters, was one of the Assyrian leaders. He also ruled, brothers and sisters, in Babylon. All right? So we want to point that out for edification purposes. Next part. The Persians. This is from the era of Darius. Now, Darius the first was also a pharaoh in Egypt's, brothers and sisters, 27th dynasty. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a picture of the brother Yared, the brother Moriyiftak, and myself, in which we was keeping the timing of Chag Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, inside the congregation Shomrei Habri. All right? So just want to point that out for reference purposes. Now, of course, we can see by the picture of Darius in this particular case, found in Iran, they're black. Next slide. Now, picture of the Ethiopian version of Solomon and Sheba. Now, what you're looking at, brothers and sisters, on the right-hand side is a picture found in the Zagwe Lalibela area of how they said Solomon and the Queen of Sheba came together. Now, we already know, brothers and sisters, we come as a people in different shades. So we definitely do not, brothers and sisters, want to go into the Willie Lynch matter of, well, one looks lighter than the other, and so forth and so on. All right? That's something we definitely want to point out for reasonable purposes in that case. What you're looking at on the left-hand side is a picture of me and my lady Sarai when we was at the camp in regards, brothers and sisters, with Shavuot last week, so-called Sunday. All right? Next slide, please. All right. Picture of Lige Yasu, the grandson of Menelik. Now, when I say Menelik, I'm talking about Menelik II from the 19th century. Menelik II had a daughter named Zaditu, and this is in Ethiopia. And she had a son named Lige Yasu. Lige Yasu's cousin was the person that we know in famous history as Haile Selassie. So, if anything, the direct line came also, brothers and sisters, between the matter of Lige Yasu, more so than saying Lige Tofara Makanan, aka Haile Selassie himself. Now, did Solomon and the Queen of Sheba make a baby? The Book of Kings says he gave the queen all her desire. Let's move on. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a picture of the brother Moreh Yiftach and his Isha Yakia. Next slide. I just want to show in contrast, showing it like us and us. Us and us. All right? Picture from Ethiopia regarding Solomon. Now, brothers and sisters, you can find these kind of pictures inside of, believe it or not, the place in Ethiopia called Lalibela. All right. Now, when you're looking at this particular matter, you will see what they have there said as Solomon upon a horse, or a descendant of Solomon saying upon a horse. And what you're seeing on the other side is the brother Naphtali reading it from the book of Psalms last week at Chag Shavuot, and so forth. So I just want to go over that for edification purposes. All right. Next part. Diaspora in part. We went over this picture in the past. When Assyria fell, some of the tribes went over to northern Africa. When I say tribes, I'm talking about the house of Israel. All right. In that particular case, when you see here the southern kingdom of Judah fall, many of them also went into African places. All right. So now let's look at this carefully. You have brothers and sisters with the migration of the people going as far as southern Africa, going from, as we pointed out in the teaching on the channel, Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, not part 2, but part 1. There's a video called Teaching History in Honor of My Mother. And on that, I went into the fact about how the people in Yemen went as far as Nigeria, laying claim to being of the house of Israel. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we do not want to sit there and act as if it's not important for edification purposes. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a picture of me and my lady when we were in Egypt last year. Now, as pointed out, if my timing is right in the book that I wrote, Egypt Talking Writing, that means that this area we was in predates the Exodus, because the part we was in the area of Giza. The Exodus happened after the 3rd dynasty, after the 4th dynasty of Egypt, in a place, as we went over many cases, called Avaris, which is northeast of where me and my lady was in Egypt. All right, so we just want to point that out for edification purposes. Get your pens and paper. We're going collegiate. I state again, get your pens, get your paper, because we're going collegiate upon this matter. This is not to sound boastful, arrogant, or belligerent, or anything of that sort. So we're going to take an intermission, all right, and play some music. Let me know what it is, what's going on in the comments. I appreciate those who are watching. Please subscribe to the channel. And brothers and sisters, we're going to take a very short intermission, and we're going to continue on in this particular case. All right, let's do that.
You know, it doesn't matter if you choose left or right because they're both chewy, crunchy, and delicious. You know, it doesn't matter if you choose left or right because they're both chewy, crunchy, and delicious.
Sorry about the commercial, fam. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Let us continue, family. Let us continue, brothers and sisters, where we were, giving honor and due respect unto the Most High. I appreciate you all joining on, following, liking, commenting, and subscribing, brothers and sisters. We're going to continue on in this particular presentation. All right. Now, I tried to do a little change up with the music thing. I don't know how that came out to everybody, but I'm open for constructive criticism. All right. So, as pointed out, get your pens and paper. We're going collegiate. Let us look, brothers and sisters, at this here. Right? We have here the laser pointer. Negro land. Here we see Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a Greek term for Ethiopian and Ops, which means burnt face, brothers and sisters. So now when you go, brothers and sisters, to the book by LaRon Bennett Jr. called Before the Mayflower, you know good and well that the people that were brought over here as captives was called Ethiopians. Those who do know that in the 15th and 16th century, what is referred to, brothers and sisters, as now the Atlantic Ocean was called the Ethiopian Sea. So these are just things we want to point out for reference purposes. All right, if you want more information upon that, you can go to Ivan Van Sertima's book called African Presence in Early America. All right, in that book, he gets into that matter. Let's go on into this. The matter of Anthony Johnson. Oh, I wanted to go over this here. This, what you see advertised here, is the Light Hebrew magazine. All right. For those who do know, they do push and promote Israelite music, Israelite teachings, Israelite publications, and so forth. All right. It is ran by Brew News. You can look that up on Facebook when it's not Sabbath and when you get the time. I just wanted to point that out. The matter of Anthony Johnson. Now, let's look before we get into that real quick again. Let's look on the left side here. We see Hint magazine, Hebrew Israelite National or Hebrew Israelite National Times. Now, that's a magazine that, thank the Most High, I had the ability to be written in. I wrote for that magazine. That magazine is ran by someone you can find on Facebook by the name of Tyrone Webb. Webb is W-E-B-B. All right, so just want to point that out. Now, when you look, brothers and sisters, say at this here, the first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to court and demanded it. Now, we went over this before. And brothers and sisters, let's just look at this real quick. 1654 and 1655. Brothers and sisters, there were, as we pointed out, black people and slaves as slaves in what we call Florida of today since 1565. 1565. Which is over 50, 60 years plus before this matter with Anthony Johnson. So that's why we want to point things out for edification purposes. In the year 1640, which is 13 to 15 years before this matter with Anthony Johnson, there was a guy named John Punch, and he became a permanent slave. So we want to point, again, this out for edification purposes. So now when somebody says in this meme here, the first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to court and demanded it. Who were the people that was inside the court that he made the demand to? Were they black men? In Virginia? In the 17th century? It says here, in 1654, it was time for Anthony to release John Caesar, a black indentured servant. Instead, Anthony told Caesar he was extending his time. Caesar left and became employed by the free white man, Robert Parker. All right, now let's look at this. They're trying to, while showing a picture of a guy named Lewis Hayden. Lewis Hayden, brothers and sisters, is who that man is in the picture. Lewis Hayden dates to the 1800s, not even the 1600s. So they took a picture of just somebody, put it up there, thought the black men don't read, and then say, let's just push this meme out there. So I remember looking this up on the YouTube world and seeing Europeans or Caucasians, if you will, trying to sit there and say, yeah, see, the first slave owner was a black man. So I did a video on it and put it inside of their comments to sit there and see what it was. This video, brothers and sisters, got over 500-600 views, which, not being funny for my channel, was a lot. In light of that, some of the comments were, well, what was meant by that when they said that he was the first slave owner was what? Because you forgot about John Punch. See, that's why reading is important. That's why getting your information together is important. And though nobody knows everything, we definitely want to point things out for edification purposes. All right? So let's go on into this. Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker in the Northampton court in 1654. In 1655, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson could hold John Case indefinitely. The court gave judicial sanction for blacks to own a slave of their own race. What court did that? Was it a black man's court? And how, if we were taken, which in many cases was true, from Western Africa, Central Africa, and for those who study a little deeper, you know the slaves in Manhattan were brought from East Africa. Get your study up. You understand? How did a black man get the last name Johnson? How did my father have the last name Hutchinson? How do we as black people walk around with the name Peterson? How are we walking around with the name Smith? In records, because the true Anthony Johnson was called Antonio the Negro, and he died in 1670. Brothers and sisters, the movement in a way to try to minimize the European as the enslaver, we start seeing foolishness like this. Next slide. We see a meme stating that Anthony Johnson in 1655 became the first permanent slaveholder and thus the pioneer of American slavery. In the presentation in this book, we see that such is not the case. Read the dates and names and location of where the slaves were. A source I cite comes from Slavery to Freedom, which says, indeed, by 1640, some Africans of Virginia had become bondservants for life. The actual statutory slavery in Virginia came in 1661. All right, so now when you go, as we pointed out, we're going collegiate. When I was in BMCC, Borough Manhattan Community College, the teacher, all right, I ain't going to mention her name out of respect and privacy purposes, she had us in the Afro-American 123 class read a book From Slavery to Freedom by Franklin and Moss, M-O-S-S. You can get that book, 8th edition. It states in there, by 1640, some Africans in Virginia had become bondservants for life. So if that college book called From Slavery to Freedom is accurate, how then in the 1650s is this guy called the pioneer of American slavery? Unless we don't know what the definition of pioneer means. If I can be heard, give me a 1, please. If I can be heard, give me a 1. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for that. Now, let us go on and continue, family, in this particular case. All right. And it says, this shows that blacks were lifetime slaves before 1655 in Virginia, and it was given, quote, legal status in 1661. The understanding of Anthony Johnson as the, quote, pioneer of American slavery is a horrible distortion and misnomer in light and history. He is in records called Antonio the Negro, and thus it reasons that as the Dutch brought blacks as slaves to Virginia after capturing Portuguese ships, we see how such happens that one perhaps got such name. See, while forgetting or caring to acknowledge, brothers and sisters, the Dutch and the Portuguese involvement, we can begin to see how people are just trying to focus on a matter. Oh, well, it was before it was part of the United States. It was before it was a colony and things of that kind of nature, because you had colonial America before you had the United States of America. But one consistency between Spanish America, which included Florida, which later on became in part known as colonial America, and then the United States of America, is that they all had slaves. So that's something we want to point out for reasonable purposes. Let's go on to the next slide. Deuteronomy 28:52. We will besiege several strong times. Some of the nations were the Canaanites, Philistines, Assyrians, Babylonians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Ethiopians, Egyptians, Moabites, Edomites, and Americans. Now, the siege made upon the northern tribes of Israel was for 3 years. The capital was Samaria. Prior to that time, Hazael of the Arameans attacked the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh, that being on the east side of the Jordan. The Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser III attacked Israel in 734 BCE, in which the tribe of Naphtali was taken captive. 2 Kings 15:29. The successor of Tiglath-Pileser was Shalmaneser V, who ruled from 727 to 722 BCE. The siege he began was completed by his successor Sargon II, this being in 722, 721 BCE. Next slide. The Assyrians, even before this, had a quote time with the Israelites. Jehu, king of Israel, paid tribute to Shalmaneser III, that being in the 9th century BCE. Jehoash, king of Judah, paid tribute to Hazael, the king of Syria. Jehoahaz, king of Israel, paid tribute to Adad-Nirari of Assyria, that being in the 9th century BCE. They paid tribute to avoid being besieged. We today pay rent to avoid the monsters from coming. The Assyrian king Esarhaddon, from 681 to 669 BCE, actually recorded besieging Manasseh, king of Judah. Now, why does that become important? Because Manasseh, the king of Judah, is the son of Hezekiah, king of Judah. The Assyrians, speaking upon attacking the Israelites, in their own record, confirms the biblical record. See, it's not like not trying to be funny. The war between Ramses II and the Hittites, sometime before that or so, it was a matter of who won, because both the Hittites and the Egyptians claimed victory. Whereas when you read in the scriptures, the Assyrians claimed victory over the Israelites, and the Israelites claimed defeat by the Assyrians. So you can see how that particular matter matches up. All right. The Assyrians as a kingdom, after that, went into civil war and anarchy. And by the 7th century BCE, the Babylonians were coming up as a power. The Babylonian king named Nabopolassar defeated Ashurbanipal and ruled in the land of Assyria. His son Nebuchadnezzar is noted for taking captive of the tribes of the southern part: Levi, Benjamin, Simeon, and Judah. In the year 597 BCE, and in the year 586 BCE, Judea, that is the kingdom of Judah, was taken as captive, the kings being Jehoiakim and Zedekiah, respectively. So Jehoiakim, brothers and sisters, in 597, and Zedekiah in 586 BCE. According to Bernard Anderson, we see Egypt came to be one of the major centers for the Jewish dispersion. We know Jewish to be Hebrew, all right? Let's go in. To understand some of the history presented in context, let us understand that Tiglath-Pileser was known as Pulu in Babylon, and his successor, Shalmaneser V, was known as Ululai in Babylon. Pulu defeated Nebuchadnezzar. The Assyrians, too, were defeated by the Chaldeans, the Beit Yakin, when they joined forces with the Persians. Now, why does all of that become important? Because the Persians later on, during the time of the Roman Empire, were the ones that defeated the Romans in part on behalf of the Israelites. The Persians, during the time of the Roman Empire, in part was fighting for on behalf of the house of Israel. So these are just things when we start talking about our history, when we start talking about, say, quote, Juneteenth, when we start talking about the matter of what we have been through as a people, let us not forget, O house of Israel, our people extended, so-called black people, their ears are open now. They're talking about Juneteenth, and there are banks closing, and they have made that day a, quote, holiday. Of course, we don't do holidays, but we have Purim, which is man-made, in our Tanakh. We have Hanukkah, which is man-made, right in our Apocrypha. And brothers and sisters, when you go into the book of Zechariah, it talks about the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, the fast of the 10th month. Those days are not mentioned in Leviticus 23. So yes, Israel, there were days that were man-made that, yes, Israel did have among themselves. So while our people's attention is on it, like slavery, history, our people, where we are, who we are, where we come from, a word spoken at the right time is wisdom, says Solomon. So this is why we want to respectfully take advantage of the time and present this to our people. Sargon of Assyria defeated Merodach Baladan and ruled in his stead. After Sargon died in 705 BCE, the Babylonian ruler Merodach Baladan ruled again in Babylon. Sennacherib, 705 to 681, defeated the united forces of Babylon and Elam. Elam are the Persians, brothers and sisters. So in light of that, we want to point these things out for edification purposes. Let us go in this. Babylon was then ruled by Bel-Ebni, who with Mushezib Marduk rebelled against Assyria. Sennacherib, however, defeated them. Sennacherib set up Ashur-nadishumi as ruler of Babylon. Sennacherib was killed by his sons. Esarhaddon was like his third son, was a ruler in both Assyria and Babylon, but he in time set up his son Ashurbanipal as ruler in Assyria, and Shamashamukin as king in Babylon. Now, why does these things become important? Because it talks about the Pharaoh in Exodus. It mentions Potiphar by name in Genesis. It mentions that they built for the Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. It mentions Shiphrah and Puah in the book of Exodus. It mentions the daughter of Pharaoh in the book of Exodus. So how can we then think, while Exodus tells us also of the Shabbat, can we separate the timing of the Israelite in history in Shabbat? Exodus that talks about the Exodus and talks about the Shabbat. There is nothing wrong while on Shabbat going over the history to show, as it says in Psalms 85, the truth of the Most High will come from the earth. So let us continue and then close out with the time allotted. Shamash Shumukin and Ashurbanipal both had war, and Ashurbanipal won against the united forces of Shamash-Shmushkin and the Elamites. Ashurbanipal died in 627 BCE, and the Babylonians set up Nabopolassar on the throne. Nineveh was attacked in 612 BCE. Babylon was coming up as a power, as an empire at this time, and Shusharishkun was killed in battle. Nebuchadnezzar defeated Necho in battle. You know who Necho is? Necho is the guy who assassinated Josiah, king of Judah. His name is in the Tanakh as well. Necho was the king over Egypt. Babylon was also defeated the people of Tyre. In time, Babylon lost to the Persians. Let us continue in this, brothers and sisters, and close out. In 550 BCE, Cyrus II defeated Astyages of the Medes and annexed them. This is why by the time they come in contact with the Israelites, we see the term Medes and Persians. Eventually, after Cyrus, his son Cambyses took over Babylon and Egypt. The 27th dynasty of Egypt is Cambyses, Darius II, Xerxes I, Artaxerxes I, and Darius II. In 538 BCE, the Persian king Cyrus II defeated Nabonidus of Babylon, thereby annexing Babylon. The people of Judah, bring it on home now, Benjamin and a lot of Levites were permitted to go to the land. The unity of the Medes and the Persians is called the Achaemenid Dynasty. The Persians also defeated Lydia. Under the Persian king Xerxes I, Athens, Greece, is burned. In that era, in that time, Persia won battles in Thrace and Macedonia under Darius I. Why, again, does that become important? Because Greece is going to come up later on as a power after we see Babylon fall to the Medes and the Persians. Do you know one of my teachers, Cohen Lewy, may he rest in peace, he stated, brothers and sisters, free peoples and educated people. Do you know that being able to go into such a matter and explain the names, the dates, the times, and the places shows the evidence of us as Israelites in existence? Let's go on. The Greeks did eventually rid themselves of the Persians in battle after battle, such as in the case of Simon against the Persians, or Simon, depends how you pronounce it, in the 5th century BCE. The Persians also, in 343 BCE, reconquered Egypt, and thus we see Dynasty 31. The rulers being Artaxerxes III, Arsis, and Darius III. In the time of 333 BCE, there was the battle of Isis, ISSUS, or Isus, depends on how you pronounce it, with Greece, and the battle of Gargamella, which was both a loss to Persia. So in both in 333 and in 331, brothers and sisters, the Persians lost to the Greeks. In the book I wrote, Egypt Talking Writing, I quote unquote contend that Persia was the last great black empire on earth. Not taking nothing away from the Kingdom of Ghana, Mali, Songhai, Zegzeg, Nufa, the Zagwe, the Solomonid line of Lalibela, when the people laid claim to be not only in part and some from Solomon, but they're talking about they're the Levites in Lalibela, Ethiopia, saying they come from the line of Moses. You may want to go to Ethiopia to sit there and look up in this kind of stuff. All right? Next part. In regards to the Israelites, certain things must be made known about them in the Medo-Persian Empire. The Israelites during that time were not free. Nehemiah, who was appointed governor of that area, was just that, an appointed governor. In Nehemiah 2, we see that he had to get permission in order to go to the land of Jerusalem. There are some who teach that since Shealtiel and Zerubbabel were both prophesied and were in the time of the Persian rule that the Israelites were free, but such is not the case. The tribes of Israel were not wholly there together, and there were Israelites outside of the land. Some say more out of the land than some in the land. The next people to attack the Israelites were the Greeks. After the death of Alexander, there were 4 rulers. They were Cassander, Seleucus, Ptolemy, and Antigonus. Alexander died in 323 BCE, and in the year 301 BCE, the War of Ipsus had Antigonus removed and replaced with Lysimachus as ruler of Babylon. So, brothers and sisters, when you go say in the book of Daniel and you read about the horn that fell and then the horns that came in its place, we're going to go over that tomorrow as part when we go over Daniel chapter 7. You may want to subscribe, and I'm going to put it inside the comments. All right. The channel Shalom Ray Hob Reed. You may want to subscribe to that YouTube channel. All right. Okay, let's go on to the next part in this. Antiochus III, a Seleucid, captured Jerusalem in 198 BCE. The time before that, Jerusalem was held under the hegemony of the Ptolemies. That is from 320 to 198. Antiochus IV captured Jerusalem in 168. The Maccabean Revolt was from 168 to 142 BCE. To give account of the Maccabees, let's do this. Judah Maccabee was a leader from 165 to 160 BCE. In the time of his leadership, the Battle of Beth Zur occurred. This war led to the institution of Hanukkah or Hanukkah. Jonathan Maccabee was leader from 160 to 142 BCE. During this time, the Greeks lost 2 wars to Rome, and Rome won 1 war, the Punic War, number 3. See how the history ties in. Simon Maccabee was leader from 142 to 134 BCE. During this time, Rome was on the scene and Greece was out the bracket. After Simon, who was an Israelite, passed, his son John Hyrcanus was leader. This is the same Hyrcanus who is noted in Josephus for making the Edomites convert to the ways of being Hebrew/Israelites. He was a leader from 134 to 104 BCE. During this time is when the War of Jugurtha in North Africa occurred in 105 BCE. Also, in the same era time frame, Carthage was rebuilt by Rome in 129 BCE. The sons of John Hyrcanus were Judah Aristobulus, who was leader from 104 to 103 BCE, and Alexander Jannaeus, who was leader from 103 to 76 BCE. A lady, a woman, was ruler too in the time frame in the era after Jannaeus from 76 to 67 BCE. Her name was Salome Alexandra. The children of Shalom and Alexander were Aristobulus, who was leader from 67 to 63 BCE, and then John Hyrcanus II from 63 to 40 BCE. By this time, Rome is heavy on the scene, and in 63 BCE, Rome makes Jerusalem a Roman province. Pompey was assassinated, but no one missed him, to be candid. Tacitus records that Pompey was the first Roman to enter the Jerusalem temple and noted that the Israelites in there had no images set up. Brothers and sisters, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. There will be a part 2 to this. Stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. Again, stay tuned. subscribe to the channel, leave your comment. Let me know what you think. I can be reached, brothers and sisters, at the number here. All right, 908 587 4841. Shalom. Most High bless. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like and the bell so when we go live, you can get it. Shalom.